Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Xu. I'm the Barbara Bass Baker Director of the Asian Art Museum. Welcome to join me exploring some of the wonderful pieces in our collection of ancient Chinese bronzes. Our museum houses one of the most important and the largest collections of ancient Chinese bronzes outside China. It boasts very broad in time, dating from about 1500 BCE to about the beginning of the Common Era, and also very broad in variety, various kinds of vessel types, music instruments, garment hooks, mirrors, weapons. In this gallery, we highlight some of the most important pieces, and I like to select 4 to go into some depth to explore them along with you. And of course, the 4 pieces will not do the justice to our magnificent collection. But my point will be, hopefully, you'll be interested in this journey, interested in learning about those 4 pieces, and then you can go on journey to explore on your own. I look forward to seeing all of you at the end of the tour. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, or we can explore possible answers together. I'd like to introduce you to this very elegant bronze vessel in our museum's collection. It is of the type called he. He meaning a particular type that's for wine container, for serving liquid in ancient times. And it dates from the 15th century BCE. In other words, it dates from the earliest period of China's Bronze Age. For our museum to have a specimen of such early bronzes, it is very rare. And this really attests the great significance of our museum's collection. Let's first look at the shape of the vessels. It has 3 legs, 3 pouched legs. And this not only makes the vessel very stable, but also make it very practical, because those fat pouches could contain the liquid, and before the liquid was served, it could be heated from underneath. So the pouches make the surface pretty broad in the heating surface, so it's very functional. And also to harken back to the original ceramic prototype, and which we have a similar example right next to it, also has a pouch of these surfaces used for liquid as well. As we know, of course, before bronzes was invented, there was always pottery. And when the bronzes were invented, pottery will continue to be made and used. Of course, bronzes were used in very, very special occasions, normally in sacrificial ceremony to ancestors or very high-ranking banquets. So that's why these kind of vessels, often the case, carry important surface decoration as well. And here, if you notice, there is a thin band of surface decoration in relief that carries so-called a animal-inspired zoomorphic design. Because the vessel was made rather early, so the design is delicate and subtle. You have to pay a great deal of attention in order to see it. But besides the narrow band of design on those legs, there's also another way of enjoying the shape and the decoration of this particular piece. That is a way to look from top down. If you look from top down, you will realize that actually the opening on the top is a person's mouth, because on top of it, above it, a pair of eyes. We humans are always attracted to eyes. Once we see a pair of dots, we interpret this is the eyes. Of course, in this particular case, not only you have a pair of eyes, you also have the open mouth, and you have the spout. And the spout also adds to the beauty of the vessel, makes it very upright. And the handle, on the other hand, not only is practical, but also, adding further to the interesting contour of this particular piece. So both from shape, from the decoration, as well as from its functionality, this is a very, very special piece. And we're so pleased to have it in our collections, because ancient China, the bronzes is the embodiment of highest technology, in this case, casting technology, so that looking at this piece, we can approach it from multiple angles. Now I would like to introduce to you our museum's mascot, and also my favorite object in our museum's collection, an ancient Chinese bronze vessel in the shape of a rhinoceros. Yes, rhino, in this particular case, very interesting. The shape is very cute, don't you agree? And we notice this rhino has two horns, which indicates it's most likely a Sumatran rhino, which today is an endangered species, surviving only on small pockets on some islands in Indonesia. But in ancient China, like elephants, rhinos would be roaming freely in much of China's land. Then environmental change, climate change, rhino and the elephants all receded. And eventually, rhino became extinct in China, and the elephants only surviving a small area in the southwestern China, bordering Burma. In this particular case, the artist paid a great deal of attention to the naturalistic appearance of the rhino. Not only it has two horns, it has a pair of ears that are sticking out, indicating the rhino is on alert. The caster also paid attention to the number of toes, 3. Indeed, that is true. Rhino has 3 toes. And then it also do away with the surface decoration. So there's no surface pattern on this beast. Very, very naturalistic. This makes us very rare. Then, of course, the rhino has a very charming tubby tails in the back. One thing the caster did not indicate is the sex or the gender of the beast. So we don't know for sure. As we know, in ancient China, bronze vessels, mostly made in the shape of regular vessels, cups, beakers, so on and so forth. A small number were made in the shape of animals. But within that limited number of animal-shaped vessels, this is the only surviving one in the shape of a rhinoceros. So this is extremely rare. We're so proud to be the custodian of this rare treasure. What was it used for? It was used for containing wine. Once again, a very important liquid used in royal banquets or ceremonial sacrifices to one's ancestors. So would you imagine that this vessel would have a lid, which is now missing. But given the naturalistic appearance of the animal itself, one could imagine the lid is also of a shape, forming a natural contour with the rest of the body. This rhino also contains an inscription, which describes to us the person who commissioned this piece was awarded by the king of the dynasty for his participation in a military campaign. He must have done something extraordinary to deserve that award. And upon that occasion, he commissioned the piece to forever memorialize the deed. And because of the inscription, that we know that we can date it to about 1100 BCE, which means a little over 3,000 years ago. Very ancient. But compared to the piece that we have just talked about, this actually is 300 years later. This is time the Chinese bronze making attained one of its highest peaks. So it's very, very important. Because of the rarity, because of such a charm imparted by this little beast, that it has become our museum's mascot. And we encourage our visitors and the online visitors as well to come to vote for a nickname. By popular vote, now it is called the Reina. Reina in Spanish means queen, a name that is truly charming and regal. So by people's will, we now know this rhino is female. Now I'd like to introduce you to this magnificent bronze vessel. And I'd like to talk about it from several different perspectives. The first is the shape. And one word often the case to describe this kind of vessel is architectonic or architecture. Because to me, this vessel really looks like a building. We know building often the case is very stable, very well balanced. And in this case too, it has 3 spreading legs, spreading outwards, which makes the shape very stable. And we know tripod is the most stable form. Then it has curved surface, middle section of the vessel, which is very beautiful and elegant. And it rises above to the mouth rim. And on top of the mouth rim are 2 bold posts, look like architecture elements. So if we look at the profile from the top to the middle section, to the legs, or the other way around, the whole piece to me looks architectonic. Different components are well articulated. The second, let's look at the surface decoration. That this vessel is covered with surface decorations, particularly in the middle section, which is the primary section of the vessel. It has 3 tiers or 3 registers of decoration. The most prominent one is at the bottom of the middle section. You're looking at a pair of eyes looking at us. And the human psychology is such, whenever we see a pair of eyes, we will look back. So it attracts our attention. And you see the middle ridge, the razor ridge, in between the eyes, we can interpret as nose. And then we start to see it has jaws, 2 double jaws that beneath the eyes, and what above the eyes is the horns. So this is an animal, but we don't know what kind of animal it represents because it's kind of abstract, kind of stylized. But we know this creature must be very important to the people of the time. So what time was this vessel was made? It was made around 1200 BCE. So it's around the same time as our favorite bronze rhino. But you can tell those 2 pieces are completely different. This is a vessel, the other is in the shape of an animal. And this has a beautiful, elaborate surface design. The other does not have it in order to retain its naturalistic appeal. And however, they do share one thing in common. They're both wine containers. Again, wine was a very important element in the royal banquet or sacrifices for ancestors. Indeed, originally, this piece may very likely come from a tomb of a king of the dynasty of that time, the Song dynasty. So you can imagine the king of that dynasty using this vessel as one of an assembly in presiding over the royal sacrifices for his ancestors. It is magnificent, it is bold, but also it is very beautiful at the same time. And it serves a very practical function. That is, contain the wine in service for royal sacrifices. I'd like to discuss now this small vessel, but actually a vessel has larger than life significance. First of all, let me talk about the shape. It is a rectangular shaped vessel, has 4 legs or tetrapod, and belonging to the type called the ding, D-I-N-G. Among all the Chinese bronze vessel types, this is probably the most important kind. It's a food container, usually would contain meat in sacrifices, but it has taken on its political and social meaning, so that the word ding has become a symbol of establishment of rulership. So if you set down the ding in a certain area, which means you have set up your realm of authority. So it has a tremendous symbolic meanings. This vessel also has extraordinary surface decorations in the shape of birds with beautiful wings and with hooked beaks. And the artist is so ingenious that actually in the corner, each of the 4 corners, you see the wings are spread. One on this side, the other on the other side, and then of course they share the beak in the corner. The 4 corners of the vessels are very prominently articulated. And the legs are also in the shape of the birds, prominent birds. So this vessel, even though the size is small, the surface decorations made it extremely prominent. But beyond that, the vessel also contains extraordinarily important content. It's that content that makes this vessel larger than life. This vessel was made around 1,000 years BCE. So about 200 years later than the tripod that we have just discussed. And that is the time of the change of dynasty from the Song dynasty to the Zhou dynasty. Zhou was belonging to an ethnic group that conquered the kingdom of Song, established a new ruling dynasty called the Zhou. But the Song remnants were still very powerful, and they actually, colluding with some of the branches of the Zhou house, they rebelled soon after the conquest. So one lord of the Zhou royal house had to lead another expeditionary force to reconquer the Song. And that is the single most important historical incident in the entire Zhou dynasty that really settled down the power. And our bronze carries an inscription about this most signature event in the Zhou history. The inscription recorded a royal officer in the service of that Zhou lord who led the expedition to reconquer the land. And because of his extraordinary services, he was rewarded. And on that occasion, he commissioned this piece to document it, and of course, to keep his honor for his family in perpetuity. Because this kind of vessels, often the case, were used in temples for containing food, in sacrifice to ancestors. That is why this piece is extraordinary. Again, one of a kind in the world, and we are very, very fortunate to be the custodian of this object, along with many other wonderful pieces that I hope you will enjoy. Thank you.